JonBenet's family now hoping that, plus renewed public interest and new DNA technology, might finally help close this case.
Before we start, I need to warn you. This case involves the death of a child. It's disturbing, it's brutal, and if you're here, you already know the name. But I promise you, you don't know what's happening right now. If you've been with me, thank you. If you're new, hit subscribe, because what I'm about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about JonBenét Ramsey. December 26th, 1996, Christmas morning. A mother walks downstairs in her Boulder mansion. On the staircase, she finds a ransom note, 2.5 pages, handwritten, demanding $118,000, the exact amount of her husband's recent bonus. She runs to her daughter's bedroom. Empty. 6-year-old JonBenet is gone. But here's what makes your blood run cold. 8 hours later, her father finds her body in the basement wine cellar of their own home. Duct tape over her mouth, wrists bound, a garrote fashioned from a paintbrush and cord around her neck. She never left the house. No forced entry, no footprints in the snow outside, no screams, no struggle heard by anyone. Just a little girl. A ransom note that made no sense, and a crime scene that would haunt investigators for 28 years. Now here's where it gets insane. In 2025, the Boulder Police Department announced something that sent shockwaves through the true crime community. They're retesting evidence that was never fully examined, using technology that didn't exist in 1996, DNA from an unknown male, found in 2 separate locations on JonBenet's body, mixed with her blood. It doesn't match her father, it doesn't match her brother, it doesn't match anyone in the family, and it's never been identified. Chief Stephen Redfern made a promise in December 2025, "We will leave no stone unturned." Genetic genealogy, the same tech that caught the Golden State Killer. Next-generation DNA sequencing that can pull profiles from samples so small they were useless in the 90 seconds. AI-powered crime scene reconstruction. Fiber analysis using spectroscopy that can trace a single thread back to the factory where it was made. John Ramsey, her father, now in his 80s, met with Boulder PD multiple times in 2025. He brought his own DNA consultant, and he said something that stopped me cold. "I believe there's a pretty good chance the killer gets named soon, maybe within months." After 28 years of grief, suspicion, dead ends, media circuses, he's more hopeful than he's been in decades. But here's the question that keeps me awake at night. What if the killer's name was always there, buried in evidence that was waiting for technology to catch up? What if the ransom note, written on paper from inside the house, with a Sharpie from the kitchen, holds linguistic patterns that modern AI can finally decode? What if fibers found on the duct tape, the garrote, the blanket fibers that didn't match anyone in the family, can now be traced to a specific person, a specific place, using databases that didn't exist in 1996? What if pollen, soil, microscopic traces invisible to the naked eye can map the killer's movements that night? In this video, I'm walking you through every single piece of forensic evidence: the DNA, the fibers, the ransom note, the autopsy findings, the behavioral analysis, the environmental traces. And I'm showing you step by step how modern science is tearing this case wide open in 2026. No theories, no speculation, just the facts, the labs, the names, the timeline. Because here's what I've learned covering cold cases. The truth doesn't disappear, it just waits. And right now, it's closer than it's ever been. So if you're ready, let's go. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was born August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia. She was the youngest child of JonBenét Ramsey, a successful businessman, and Patricia Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen who won the Miss West Virginia title in 1977. The family moved to Boulder, Colorado, in 1991 when John's company, Access Graphics, a computer services firm, relocated there. By 1996, Access Graphics had become a billion-dollar subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. John was wealthy, respected, and deeply involved in Boulder's business community. Patsy had recently battled stage 4 ovarian cancer. She was declared cancer-free in 1993, but the illness left its mark on the family. She threw herself into motherhood and her daughter's pageant career. JonBenet had an older half-brother, John Andrew, and half-sister, Melinda, from John's first marriage. Her full brother, Burke, was 9 years old in 1996. By all accounts, JonBenet was a bright, energetic child. She loved singing, dancing, and performing. She competed in child beauty pageants across Colorado and nationally, winning titles like Little Miss Colorado, America's Royale Miss, and National Tiny Miss Beauty. Her pageant participation would later become a flashpoint. Critics called it exploitative. Videos of JonBenet in makeup, costumes, and performing routines were replayed endlessly on national television after her death, fueling public outrage and suspicion. But to her family, she was just a little girl who loved the stage. The Ramseys lived in a large Tudor-style home at 755 15th Street in Boulder. The house had 15 rooms spread across 3 floors, plus an unfinished basement. It was a maze of hallways, staircases, and storage areas. That layout would become critical to understanding what happened on Christmas night, 1996. December 1996 was a busy month for the Ramseys. John was traveling frequently for work. Patsy was preparing for the holidays, decorating the house, wrapping gifts, organizing parties. On December 23rd, the Ramseys hosted a Christmas party at their home. Friends, neighbors, business associates, and their children attended. The house was full of people. Some would later recall seeing unfamiliar faces in the crowd. Contractors had been in and out of the house in the weeks leading up to Christmas. Holiday decorations were installed. Repairs were made. Cleaning services came through. The home was not a closed environment. JonBenet performed at a Christmas recital on December 22nd. She sang and danced. Patsy recorded it on video. It was one of the last times she would be seen alive in public. On Christmas Day, the family attended a party at the home of Fleet and Priscilla White, close friends of the Ramseys. JonBenet played with other children. She ate pineapple and crab. The family left around 9 p.m. John carried JonBenet from the car to her bedroom. She had fallen asleep. Patsy said she changed her into pajamas and put her to bed without fully waking her. Burke was also put to bed. John and Patsy stayed up briefly, then went to sleep. The house was quiet, or so they thought. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy Ramsey called 911. Her voice was frantic, shaking. She told the dispatcher that her daughter had been kidnapped. There was a ransom note. The call lasted less than a minute, but it would be analyzed thousands of times over the next 3 decades. Patsy said she woke up around 5:30 a.m. to prepare for a family trip to Michigan. As she walked down the spiral staircase from the 2nd floor to the 1st, she found a handwritten note on one of the steps. It was 2.5 pages long, written on a pad of paper from inside the house, with a Sharpie marker from the kitchen. The note read, "Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business but not the country that it serves. At this time we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter." It demanded $118,000, the exact amount of John's recent Christmas bonus from Access Graphics. It warned against calling the police or FBI. It threatened to behead JonBenet if the Ramseys didn't comply. It ended with the phrase, "Victory, SBTC." Patsy ran upstairs to JonBenet's bedroom. Empty. The bed was made, but JonBenet was gone. She screamed for John. He read the note. They checked Burke's room. He was asleep. John told Patsy to call 911. She did. Within minutes, Boulder police officer Rick French arrived at the house. He was the first responder. He walked through the home, checking doors and windows. He found no signs of forced entry. He opened the door to the basement wine cellar. It was dark. He didn't see anything. He closed the door and moved on. That decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. By 6 a.m., more officers arrived. Detective Linda Arndt was assigned as the lead investigator on scene. But the scene was already compromised. Patsy had called friends before police arrived. Fleet and Priscilla White came over. So did John and Barbara Fernie, another couple close to the Ramseys. They walked through the house. They touched things. They tried to comfort Patsy. The ransom note said the kidnappers would call between 8 and 10 a.m. with instructions. The call never came. By 1 p.m., Detective Arndt told John and Fleet White to search the house again. She wanted them to look for anything unusual. John and Fleet went to the basement. John opened the door to the wine cellar. This time, He turned on the light. He saw a white blanket on the floor. He pulled it back. "JonBenet!" John screamed. He picked her up and carried her upstairs. Detective Arndt tried to stop him, but it was too late. JonBenet's body was laid on the floor in the living room. She was cold, stiff. Rigor mortis had set in. Duct tape covered her mouth. Her wrists were tied loosely above her head with white cord. A garrote, a ligature made from white cord and a broken paintbrush handle, was tightened around her neck. She was wearing a white long-sleeved shirt and white long johns. No shoes, no socks. There was no blood. No visible signs of a struggle, but she was dead. The autopsy was performed on December 27th, 1996, by Dr. John Meyer, the Boulder County coroner. The findings were devastating. Cause of death: asphyxiation due to strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. JonBenet had been struck on the head with a blunt object. The blow fractured her skull, an 8.5-inch linear fracture on the right side. The force was massive. It caused bleeding in her brain. But the head injury didn't kill her immediately. The garrote did. The cord was tightened around her neck, with a wooden handle later identified as part of Patsy's paintbrush from her art supplies in the basement. The ligature was twisted, creating a tourniquet effect. It crushed her throat, cut off her airway. Petechial hemorrhages, tiny burst blood vessels, were found in her eyes and face, classic signs of strangulation. There was also evidence of chronic and acute trauma to her genitals. The autopsy noted abrasions and inflammation. A small wooden splinter was found in her vaginal area. Dr. Meyer could not definitively determine if she had been sexually assaulted that night, but the findings were consistent with trauma. Her stomach contained pineapple. Partially digested, she had eaten it within hours of her death. But the Ramseys said they didn't give her pineapple that night. A bowl of pineapple was found on the kitchen table the next morning. Burke's fingerprints were on the bowl. So were Patsy's. Time of death was estimated between 10 p.m. on December 25th and 2 a.m. on December 26th. The autopsy raised more questions than it answered. Who struck her on the head? Who strangled her? Was she assaulted? And why was there pineapple in her stomach? The ransom note became one of the most analyzed pieces of evidence in criminal history. It was long, theatrical, bizarre. Real kidnappers don't write 2.5-page notes inside the victim's home. They don't use the family's own paper and pen. They don't demand the exact amount of the father's bonus. And they don't return the pen and pad to the kitchen drawer. But that's exactly what happened here. Handwriting experts were brought in immediately. The FBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, private analysts hired by both the police and the Ramseys. Patsy Ramsey provided multiple handwriting samples. So did John. John was ruled out quickly. His handwriting didn't match. Patsy's was inconclusive. Some experts said there were similarities, letter formations, spacing, certain flourishes. One analyst identified over 200 points of comparison, but others said the note was disguised. The writer was trying to alter their natural handwriting. No definitive match was ever made. The content of the note was even stranger. It referenced movies. "Don't try to grow a brain," echoed Dirty Harry. "Use that good Southern common sense," felt personal. Victory, SBTC, was never explained. The note called the kidnappers a small foreign faction, but the language was American, colloquial, educated. Spelling errors, bussiness instead of business, seemed deliberate, like someone trying to appear less educated than they were. Early forensic linguists, including Donald Foster, a Vassar professor who helped catch the Unabomber, analyzed the note. Foster initially pointed to Patsy. Later, he backed away, saying his methods weren't conclusive. James Fitzgerald, the FBI linguist who profiled the Unabomber, also reviewed the note. He noted feminine traits in the printing, but he couldn't say definitively who wrote it. Now, in 2025, forensic linguistics has evolved. Modern tools use computational stylometry, analyzing word frequency, sentence structure, function words, punctuation patterns. Machine learning models can detect authorship even in disguised writing by identifying unconscious linguistic habits. Software can compare the ransom note against millions of documents. It can benchmark against known samples from Patsy, John, and even potential suspects. If the note shows education level, regional dialect, or psychological traits inconsistent with the family, it points elsewhere. Boulder PD hasn't publicly announced linguistic reanalysis, but the tools exist. and they're sharper than ever. What if modern AI finally cracks the code? What if the note's words reveal the killer's identity? We're still waiting. DNA evidence has been the backbone and the battleground of this case for 28 years. In 1997, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation tested JonBenet's underwear. They found a mixture of DNA, JonBenet's blood, and DNA from an unknown male. The profile was partial, weak, but it was there. It didn't match John. It didn't match Burke. It didn't match anyone in the family. In 2003, more testing was done on JonBenet's long johns, the pants she was wearing when she was found. Touch DNA was detected on the waistband. The profile matched the unknown male from the underwear. In 2008, the Boulder District Attorney, Mary Lacey, sent items to Bode Technology, a private forensic lab. Bode used advanced touch DNA methods to retest the evidence. They confirmed the same unknown male profile in 3 locations. The crotch of the underwear, mixed with JonBenet's blood, 2 separate spots on the long johns. Lacey was convinced. She publicly exonerated the Ramsey family. She issued a formal apology. She said the DNA pointed to an intruder, but not everyone agreed. Critics, including former Denver DA Mitch Morrissey and forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, said the DNA could be explained by secondary transfer. Touch DNA is fragile. People shed about 40,000 skin cells an hour. DNA transfers easily from hand to object, object to clothing, even through laundry. A few cells on a waistband could come from manufacturing, retail handling, family members folding clothes. The DNA was real. But was it the killer's? That question has never been answered. Here's what we know for certain. The unknown male profile excludes the immediate Ramsey family. It's consistent across multiple items. It's never generated a hit in CODIS, the National Criminal DNA Database, and it's never identified anyone. But in 2025, everything changed. Chief Stephen Redfern announced that Boulder PD was retesting evidence using next-generation DNA sequencing. This isn't the same technology from 1996 or even 2008. Next-generation sequencing can pull usable profiles from samples so small they would have been useless before. It handles degraded DNA better. It separates mixtures more cleanly. YSTR testing targets the male chromosome, specifically filtering out female DNA in mixtures. Labs like Parabon, Nanolabs, and Othram specialize in trace forensic work. They've solved cold cases that were considered unsolvable. John Ramsey met with Boulder PD in early 2025. He brought his own DNA consultant. He pushed for retesting on items that were never fully examined: the garrote knots, the wrist bindings, the ransom note envelope, basement trace evidence, vacuum bags from 1996. John Andrew Ramsey, JonBenet's half-brother, said publicly that dozens of items are now at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation lab. Some have never been tested at all. If modern sequencing strengthens the unknown male profile, adds more markers, resolves ambiguities, it could feed directly into investigative genetic genealogy. That's the same technology that caught the Golden State Killer, the Idaho student murderer, countless others. It builds family trees backward from distant cousins in public DNA databases like GEDmatch. But it needs a clean, reliable forensic profile to start. If the sample is too mixed or degraded, even today's tech struggles. John Ramsey believes the garrote knots are promising. Someone tied those bindings. Hands-on contact means potential touch DNA, he told reporters in 2025. I believe there's a pretty good chance the killer gets named soon, maybe within months. After 28 years, he's more hopeful than he's been in decades. But hope isn't certainty. The DNA is real, the technology is better, the will is there, but the killer's name? Still unknown. Let's talk about what touch DNA actually is, because this is where the case gets maddeningly complicated. In 1996, forensic DNA analysis required visible biological material, blood, semen, saliva. Labs needed relatively large samples to build reliable profiles using short tandem repeat, STR analysis. Touch DNA changed that. By the early 2000s, labs could detect DNA from skin cells left by simple contact, 7 or 8 cells. No visible stain needed. It revolutionized forensic science, but it also created a massive problem. How do you tell the difference between DNA left by a killer and DNA left by innocent contact? Primary transfer is direct. The person touches the object. Their cells are deposited. Secondary transfer is indirect. Person A touches object X, person B touches object X later, person B picks up person A's cells. Tertiary transfer goes even further. Person A touches person B touches object X. Person A's DNA ends up on object X without person A ever touching it. Studies have documented this. DNA transfers through laundry, through manufacturing, through retail handling. In the Ramsey case, the unknown male DNA was found in intimate locations inside JonBenet's underwear, mixed with her blood and on her long johns. That's harder to explain away as random contamination, but it's not impossible. Forensic biologist Angela Williamson, who worked on the case at Bode Technology, noted that touch DNA can detect microscopic amounts. A waistband is a high-contact area. Hands grip there. If the underwear was handled at a factory in Asia, at a retail store, or during family laundry, foreign DNA could land there innocently. The 2008 exoneration by DA Mary Lacey was based on the consistency of the profile across multiple items. She believed that ruled out contamination, but critics disagreed. Former Denver DA Mitch Morrissey tested the underwear mixture himself. He found a 50/50 split JonBenet and the unknown male. He said, "Modern sequencing isn't quite there for even mixtures yet. Genealogy needs a clean starter profile. Contamination or transfer is always possible." Dr. Michael Baden, a forensic pathologist, pointed out that trace DNA lands on clothing innocently all the time. So where does that leave us? Today, labs distinguish primary versus secondary transfer better. They weigh context. Location, inside private clothing versus exposed areas. Quantity, heavier deposits suggest direct handling. Consistency, multiple sites pointing to one source. The Boulder PD's 2025 update confirmed new evidence collected, old evidence retested, interviews ongoing. They're working with DNA experts nationwide. Technology evolves fast. What was inconclusive before might clarify now. But here's the truth. We know the unknown male DNA is real. We know it excludes the family. We know it's never been identified. We don't know if it's the killer's direct deposit or something innocent layered over time. What if modern retesting sharpens the profile enough for genealogy? What if context rules out transfer definitively? Or what if it confirms contamination and we're back to square one? The science is better, but the answers still out of reach. DNA wasn't the only trace evidence collected from JonBenet's body. Fibers were everywhere, on the duct tape over her mouth, on the garrote cord, on the paintbrush handle, on her clothing, on the white blanket, on the basement floor. Some fibers matched items in the house: red acrylic fibers from Patsy's jacket, black wool fibers possibly from John's shirt, but others didn't match anything the family owned or wore that night. Investigators collected dozens of unmatched fibers: red, blue, pink, purple, brown cloth fibers on the duct tape, animal hairs, possibly beaver fur, on the blanket, brown cotton fibers on the garrote and paintbrush handle, unidentified particles in the basement. The crime lab, Cellmark Forensic Laboratories, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation ran comparisons using optical microscopy. They compared color, shape, cross-section, and basic composition. In the late 1990s, that was standard. Fibers from Patsy's red and black jacket turned up on the sticky side of the duct tape, in the paint tray, tangled in the ligature, and on the blanket. Prosecutors in the 1998 grand jury leaned on that. They suggested Patsy transferred the fibers after the fact, when she discovered the body, or during staging, but other fibers resisted easy sourcing. Not all fibers matched the family's wardrobe. Some were chemically and microscopically similar, but not identical, to known household items. Animal hairs on the blanket didn't match the family's pets. The presence of unsourced fibers meant the scene wasn't a closed loop. Something or someone from outside could have introduced them. Early interpretation focused inward, no forced entry. Ransom note on household paper, family under scrutiny. Unmatched fibers were downplayed or explained as possible secondary transfer. Laundry, prior contact. But experts at the CBI couldn't rule out external origin entirely. Fiber evidence is transfer-friendly. Fibers shed easily. They stick to tape, clothing, hands. A stranger brushing against JonBenet or handling items could leave them. Fast forward to today. Forensic fiber analysis has evolved dramatically. Modern labs use microspectrophotometry, MSP, for precise color spectra in the visible and UV range, Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, FTIR, to identify polymer composition down to molecular bonds, Raman spectroscopy for non-destructive dye and pigment analysis, scanning electron microscopy with energy dispersive X-ray, SEM-EDX, to map elemental composition. These techniques build stronger associations or exclusions. Databases have grown, too. The FBI's Forensic Fiber Reference Collection holds thousands of manufacturer samples. International efforts allow cross-referencing with industrial production runs, retail sources, even geographic patterns. If a fiber matches a rare batch from a specific mill, it narrows origin. In the Ramsey case, Boulder PD's 2025 update confirmed old items are being retested. Fiber reanalysis could pair with that. Imagine running FTIR on those brown cotton fibers from the garrote. If they match a specific environmental source, soil-embedded particles, manufacturing residue, it points outward. Raman spectroscopy on unmatched cloth fibers could link to a suspect's clothing via database hits. Modern protocols emphasize context, location, quantity, clustering. A cluster of identical unsourced fibers in the basement wine cellar, not explained by household traffic, strengthens intruder theory. Early labs did solid work, but they lacked these refinements. 1990s, comparisons were mostly exclusionary. If no match to family, it stayed unsourced. Today, positive sourcing is possible. John Ramsey has pushed for comprehensive re-review. In interviews, he notes, trace evidence deserves fresh eyes alongside DNA. Boulder PD remains committed. Chief Redfern stresses evolving technology applies broadly. Known facts. Multiple fibers didn't match family clothing. Patsy's jacket fibers transferred plausibly post-discovery. Unsourced fibers existed on critical items. No single fiber proved an outsider definitively. Unknowns. Could modern spectroscopy resolve ambiguities? Might database queries link a fiber to a specific person or environment? If retesting finds consistencies pointing outside, does it reshape the narrative? This is maddeningly slow, but deliberate. JonBenet was 6, full of life, pageants, family holidays. Her death left traces that science keeps refining. Fibers are quiet evidence, but persistent. They remind us the scene held more than one story. There's another layer of evidence that's been quietly waiting for technology to catch up. Environmental forensics. Pollen, soil, microbes, dust. These are the microscopic witnesses that forensic ecology can now interrogate in ways that were impossible in 1996. Boulder, Colorado, the 26th of December 1996. In the cold, unfinished basement wine cellar of the Ramsey home, JonBenet's small body rests on the concrete floor, covered by a white blanket from her bedroom. Among the trace evidence collected from her clothing, the blanket, the garrote, the duct tape, and the surrounding floor, tiny particles. Dust, fibers, soil-like debris, possible pollen, environmental micromatter that didn't obviously belong to the household. The basement was damp. Unfinished in spots, concrete floors showed mold growth. Shoe prints, some unidentified, were imprinted in that mold near the body. A broken basement window in the adjacent train room had debris in the well outside. Leaves, dirt, a suitcase positioned below. Inside, investigators vacuumed areas, swabbed surfaces, collected scrapings. Early lab work focused on DNA, fibers, fingerprints. Botanical traces got attention from 2 University of Colorado forensic botanists, Dr. Jane Bock and Dr. David Norris. They examined plant-related material, possible pollen, leaf fragments, soil adhering to items. What they found? Some plant matter consistent with Colorado flora, but nothing that screamed definitive outsider origin or ruled out household sources. Pollen on clothing or the blanket could have come from outdoor exposure. JonBenet played outside. The family hiked. Christmas tree needles were tracked in. Soil on the broken window well was outdoor dirt, but the entry theory remained disputed. No massive soil transfer inside, suggesting a dirty intruder. Microorganisms, bacteria, fungi weren't deeply profiled then. Tech was limited. Those microtraces mattered because they could map environments. Forensic ecology uses palynology, pollen study, pedology, soil analysis, microbial ecology, bacteria and fungi profiling. Pollen grains are durable, species-specific, seasonal. A unique assemblage can fingerprint a region, elevation, plant community, even a specific park or yard. Soil particles carry minerals, isotopes, diatoms, microfossils. Microbes vary by habitat, urban versus rural, indoor versus outdoor. In 1996, forensic palynology was emerging, but not routine in US cases. The Ramsey botanists provided preliminary analysis. Plant material, mostly local, no exotic pollen pointing to a distant traveler. Dust might include household sources, construction residue in the basement, everyday accumulation. No public report claimed these traces proved an intruder or exonerated the family. They stayed in the background, overshadowed by DNA and fibers. Modern forensic ecology changes that. Labs now use scanning electron microscopy, SEM, with energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, EDS, to characterize soil elemental composition, silica ratios, heavy metals, rare earths, isotope analysis, oxygen, carbon, strontium to trace geological origins, pollen identification via light microscopy, and SEM to species level, microbial forensics sequencing DNA from bacteria and fungi, matching environmental microbiomes. If retested today, imagine scrapings from the blanket, garrote cord, duct tape adhesive, basement floor nearby, even vacuum bags from 1,996. Run pollen counts. Does the assemblage match boulder, winter, flora, pine, juniper, grass, or show something anomalous? Higher elevation conifers, coastal species, greenhouse plants? Soil from the window well versus basement floor. Do mineral profiles match or differ? Microbial communities. Basement dampness breeds specific molds. Does the body location show transfer from elsewhere? In intruder scenarios, an outsider brings microtraces from vehicle, shoes, clothing, soil from driveway, pollen from park scouting, microbes from skin or breath. If consistent across multiple items, garrote, tape, blanket, but absent from family routine, it strengthens external link. Familial transfer explains most. JonBenet carried outdoor pollen home, but clustering in crime spots could indicate staging or movement. Boulder PDs, December 2025. Update. Chief Stephen Redfern reiterated commitment. New evidence collected, old retested. Interviews ongoing. Collaboration with national experts. Techniques and technology constantly evolve. John Andrew Ramsey noted dozens of basement items, some untested at Colorado Bureau of Investigation labs. Trace evidence like soil and pollen fits reanalysis. No public mention of ecology specifically, but broader forensic review includes it. Known facts. Basement showed mold, unidentified shoe prints in it. Broken window had outdoor debris. Plant material analyzed early. Local, mostly. No exotic pollen or soil definitively reported as outsider marker. Trace collection hampered by contamination, friends. Family walked scene before sealing. Unknowns. Could modern palynology resolve pollen mixes? Might soil isotopes from window well link to a specific locale? Do microbial profiles show foreign bacteria? If retesting finds environmental signatures inconsistent with household, but matching a suspect's known haunts, does it narrow geography? This is slow, meticulous work. JonBenet was 6, loved sparkly dresses, Christmas lights, her big brother. Her death left microscopic echoes in dust and pollen, waiting for better eyes. My heart goes out to her family, to John, pushing every angle, to the investigators who keep the file open. What if these tiny grains tell a story of someone who came from outside? What if they stay silent? The science keeps improving, so we keep listening. Let's step back from the microscopic evidence and look at the bigger picture. The behavior. Who does this? Who breaks into a home on Christmas night, writes a ransom note, assaults a child, kills her, and leaves her body in the basement? Early investigators lean toward family involvement. The intimate setting, no forced entry. The ransom note's peculiarities. But modern behavioral models in criminology offer a framework to re-examine the actions step by step. These models draw from large datasets. FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children Studies. Research on child abduction homicides. They look at offender-victim relationships, crime sequence, premeditation indicators, victimology, post-offense behavior, familial offenders, parents, siblings, close relatives, often kill in bursts of anger, frustration, or accident escalation. The act is frequently impulsive or reactive. The body is rarely moved, far often left in place or hidden minimally. Staging is rare and clumsy. The offender knows police will look inward. Post-offense, the family member might show inconsistent grief, but the scene lacks elaborate misdirection like a detailed ransom note. Non-familial offenders, predatory strangers, or acquaintances with prior access show different patterns. They often scout targets, pageants, neighborhoods, places where kids are visible. They may have prior contact or familiarity with the home layout. The crime involves planning, entry method, restraint tools brought or improvised on site, control during the act, killing to silence the victim, staging to create a false narrative, like kidnapping. The offender lingers to write notes, arrange the body, or clean up. Escape is calculated, minimal trace left. Walk through the Ramsey scene against these models. The ransom note, over 370 words, referencing movies, demanding the exact bonus amount, suggests insider knowledge, but also theatricality. Real kidnappings rarely involve long handwritten demands inside the victim's home. The note's placement on the stairs, the pad and pen returned, points to someone comfortable lingering. The garrote complex, improvised from household items, cord, paintbrush, restraints loose enough that a child wouldn't fight hard, consistent with control rather than panic. Chronic and acute trauma noted in autopsy. Body placement in a remote basement room, covered with a blanket, shows post-mortem handling, no immediate disposal outside. These elements align more closely with predatory intruder patterns than a familial outburst. In familial cases, the sequence is often short. Trigger, violence, immediate aftermath. Here, the offender spent time, potentially hours, writing, binding, assaulting, killing, staging. Studies on child abduction homicide show that when strangers or acquaintances kill, the offender frequently has prior access or knowledge of the victim's routine. JonBenet's pageant exposure made her visible. A hypothetical offender with child access history might scout affluent homes, understand family schedules, Christmas party absence, basement access. Premeditation markers, tools improvised but purposeful, garrote for control and lethality, no rushed escape signs. Modern models emphasize sequence, entry, victim acquisition, offense, disposal, staging. Familial offenders skip elaborate staging. Predators use it to shift blame. The note fits misdirection, fake foreign faction, victory sign-off. Boulder PD's 2025 update. Chief Redfern confirms new interviews, leads from tips, fresh evidence collection, retesting old items. They emphasize evolving techniques, including broader forensic applications. No specific behavioral reprofiling mentioned publicly. But the Colorado Cold Case Review Team, convened 2023 to 2024, recommended comprehensive re-examination. John Ramsey pushes for full review, believing an intruder fits the behaviors. Known facts. No forced entry beyond disputed basement window. Note written on household paper. Foreign DNA present but trace. Scene undisturbed upstairs. No witness to intruder. Unknowns. Did prior scouting occur? Was the offender familiar with the home or family? Does the sequence match a prepared predator more than reactive family violence? Modern models say yes for the former: planning, staging, lingering, but certainty requires more. This is frustrating. Patterns suggest preparation over impulse, yet the intimate setting pulls suspicion inward. JonBenet was a vibrant little girl. Pageants, smiles, family love. Her death involved cruelty and calculation that feels external. My heart goes out to her, to John, still seeking answers, to every family shattered by unsolved loss. What if behavioral reanalysis sharpens the profile? What if it points to someone with child contact history who knew the house? We don't know yet. But models evolve, and so does hope for truth. Here's the hard truth. The early investigation was flawed, not because the detectives were incompetent, but because they were human, and humans make mistakes. The Ramsey family became the main focus within days, and when that happened, other directions suffered. The timeline unfolded fast and messy. December 26th morning. Patsy calls 911 reporting a kidnapping after finding the note. John discovers JonBenet's body in the basement wine cellar around 1 p.m. Police initially treated it as a kidnapping, but the autopsy confirmed homicide. Within days, suspicion turned inward. No forced entry. Note written inside. Bonus amount matching John's recent check. Crime scene contaminated by visitors. Detectives didn't interview the family formally for months. The Ramseys hired attorneys and limited cooperation initially. Media exploded. Tabloids, TV specials, headlines screaming family guilt. Pageant videos of JonBenet in makeup and costumes fueled outrage. People called her sexualized. Parents, exploitative. Rumors spread. Patsy wrote the note. Burke was involved in an accident. John covered it up. Public opinion polls showed most Americans believed the family was responsible. Pressure mounted on police to deliver. Turning points came hard. Detective Lou Smith, hired by the DA's office, pushed intruder theory. Broken basement window, unknown male DNA, stun gun marks, boot print outside. He resigned in 1998, saying tunnel vision on the family blinded everyone. Detective Steve Thomas, lead detective, resigned later. He believed the DA interfered. He wrote a book accusing Patsy. In 1999, a grand jury was convened. They heard evidence for 13 months. They voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey on charges of child abuse, resulting in death and accessory to a crime. But DA Alex Hunter declined to sign the indictment, citing insufficient evidence. The indictment remained sealed until 2013. In 2008, DA Mary Lacey exonerated the family based on DNA. Yet the early focus lingered. Known facts. Boulder PD pursued over 21,000 tips, interviewed more than 1,000 people across 19 states. They followed leads relentlessly, per recent statements. But the early investigation had flaws. Crime scene unsecured. Evidence potentially contaminated. Some detectives later admitted mistakes treating the scene as a kidnapping first, not securing the perimeter. Media influence was massive. Police fed info selectively. Tabloids ran wild, creating a feedback loop. Here's the core issue. When the family became the main focus, other directions suffered. Former detective Lou Smith repeatedly said at least 2,500 leads in the early months weren't fully followed because tunnel vision locked in. A similar attack 9 months later on another young girl nearby. Intruder in home. Assault interrupted by mother, never seriously linked, despite similarities. John Ramsey has pointed to it repeatedly, saying police dismissed it. Other potential leads. Neighborhood sex offenders. Pageant connections. Prior workers in the house. Some were checked, but depth was limited under family scrutiny. Pressure from public and media was intense. Boulder, a small department, no major homicide experience. National spotlight made every move scrutinized. Officers reportedly leaked to the press, hoping the family would crack. It backfired, eroded trust, hardened the Ramseys' stance. Investigative bias or cognitive tunnel vision is documented in criminology. Once a theory forms, contradictory evidence gets downplayed. In the Ramsey case, foreign DNA appeared early, but was explained away as contamination. Unmatched fibers, boot print, window debris pushed aside. Recent developments show a shift. Chief Stephen Redfern, since 2024, emphasizes, "Leave no stone unturned." Annual 2025. Update. New evidence collected, old retested. New interviews from tips. Collaboration with FBI, CBI, outside labs. Redfern met John Ramsey multiple times. The family is encouraged by new leadership. John pushes genetic genealogy hard. The department insists every viable lead is being pursued, including DNA. No public admission of past bias. But actions speak. Retesting basement items never fully examined. Fresh eyes suggest review of old assumptions. Known versus unknown separates clearly. Confirmed. Early focus on family delayed full exploration of intruder evidence. Media amplified suspicion. Leads like the similar assault weren't deeply pursued then. Today, active case. New work ongoing. No arrest yet. Unknown. How many external leads were dismissed prematurely? Would deeper pursuit have yielded a suspect? Does re-examination uncover overlooked connections? My heart goes out to JonBenet, a little girl whose life ended violently. To John, carrying grief and fight alone. To investigators who faced impossible pressure, yet kept the file open. It's maddening. It's frustrating. Bias creeps in quietly, shapes choices, leaves gaps. But science advances, leadership changes, cases reopen with fresh perspective. What if those sidelined leads held the key? What if the media storm cost time? What if truth waited decades for the right eyes? That partial DNA profile has sat in the case file for nearly 3 decades now, a stubborn whisper of someone outside the immediate family circle. It excluded John, Patsy, and Burke early and definitively. It never matched anyone in criminal databases, and because the sample was always low copy, degraded in spots, and potentially touched by secondary transfer, traditional investigative genetic genealogy, the kind that cracked the Golden State Killer case, has been held back. You need a clean, high-quality forensic starter profile for those public database builds. This one has never quite qualified. But here's where things get interesting, and where modern approaches are quietly shifting the ground under this case. Genealogy forensics doesn't have to wait for perfect DNA anymore. Investigators are layering in non-genetic records, residence histories, employment patterns, social networks, travel logs, even digital footprints, and cross-referencing them against the known physical evidence and behavioral markers. It's not the flashy tree building we see on TV. It's slower, more deliberate, and frankly more cautious when the biological starting point is this fragile. John Ramsey has been pushing exactly this kind of multi-layered review since at least 2023. He met with Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfearn multiple times in 2025. He brought his own DNA consultant. He stressed that genetic genealogy no longer requires massive samples or perfect profiles. Labs like Othram and Parabon Nanolabs have pushed the envelope on low-copy forensic work, pulling usable SNPs from trace amounts that older labs would have discarded. But even when the DNA stays partial, Ramsey and others argue the case file contains enough contextual anchors. Addresses the family lived at, companies John worked for, pageants JonBenet attended, neighbors, contractors who were in the house to build parallel investigative trees. Walk through how this actually works in practice. Start with the physical evidence anchors. The unknown male profile appears in intimate locations, the crotch of JonBenet's underwear, mixed with her blood, 2 separate spots on her long johns. Consistency across items suggests one contributor rather than random contamination. The profile is YSTR-based in parts, meaning it carries male line markers. Modern next-generation sequencing can sometimes add autosomal markers even from weak samples. If those extra markers come through clean, you feed them into public databases cautiously. GEDmatch, Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, looking for distant cousins, but if the profile stays too noisy, you pivot. You pivot to the human geography of the crime. The Ramsey family had lived in Atlanta before moving to Boulder in 1991. John ran Access Graphics, a tech distributor later acquired by Lockheed Martin. That meant business travel, conferences, employees, vendors. Patsy had ties through her pageant world, national circuits, photographers, makeup artists, other families. JonBenet competed in several Colorado pageants in 1996 alone. The house on 15th Street had seen contractors, renovations, Christmas decorations installed days before, cleaning services. Neighbors recalled unfamiliar vehicles or people in the area around the holidays. An investigator using layered genealogy starts mapping those circles outward. Residents' histories pulled from public records, voter rolls, property deeds, utility bills, employment records from LinkedIn archives, old corporate directories, SEC filings for Access Graphics, social networks reconstructed from yearbooks, church memberships. The Ramseys attended St. John's Episcopal, community groups, cross-reference against any behavioral or trace clues. For instance, if forensic ecology later ties a pollen assemblage to a higher elevation Colorado forest or a specific Midwest state, you narrow the geographic band. If fiber analysis links to a rare industrial batch from a textile mill in the southeast, you overlay manufacturing employee lists from that era. This isn't guesswork. It's systematic exclusion and inclusion. You build candidate clusters. Men of roughly the right age, in 1996, who lived within driving distance of Boulder or had reason to be there, who match any partial YSTR haplotype if available, whose known locations intersect with the Ramseys orbit. Then you layer behavioral fit. Does the candidate have a history of boundary violations with children, access to homes, modern databases, state sex offender registries, VICAP, even cleared cold case tips get queried against those clusters? Boulder PD's December 2025 annual update confirmed exactly this kind of broadened effort. Chief Redfern wrote that the department had collected new physical evidence, retested old items at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation lab, conducted new interviews, followed up on previously submitted tips, continued working with federal partners and outside forensic experts. He emphasized, techniques and technology constantly evolve. This is especially true with technology related to DNA testing. John Andrew Ramsey said publicly that dozens of items, some never tested at all, were being processed. Basement trace, unexamined debris from the broken window, well, vacuum bags, clothing, all potentially feeding into a wider net. The beauty of the multi-layered approach is risk mitigation. Traditional genetic genealogy can produce false positives when samples are weak contamination, coincidental matches at distant markers, misattributed transfer. By anchoring to independent records first, you reduce the noise. A candidate who shows up in both a partial DNA cousin match and a residence history near the Ramsey home in 1996 carries more weight than one who appears only in the genetic tree. If social media archives or old employment records place someone at a pageant venue or near-access graphics events, that intersection becomes a priority lead. Known facts line up like this. The unknown male DNA is real, partial, foreign to the family, and consistent across items. No CODIS hit ever. The Ramsey home had multiple points of access, broken window, garage doors, back entrances. Contractors and visitors were in and out during the holiday season. John Ramsey has cooperated with police on retesting since at least 2023. Boulder PD has not closed the case and continues active work. Open questions remain wide open. Could a layered review finally produce a short list of candidates worth direct comparison? Might residence or employment records tie someone to the pageant circuit or the business world in a way that explains the insider knowledge in the ransom note, the exact bonus amount? If forensic retesting strengthens even one additional marker, does that tip the genetic side enough to merge with the non-genetic tree? Or do the layers stay separate, each quietly eliminating possibilities? It's maddening how long this has taken. It's frustrating that one imperfect profile has held so much power for so long, but the shift toward multi-source genealogy feels like real movement, no longer waiting for one silver bullet sample, building outward from every verified anchor instead. My heart goes out to JonBenet, a 6-year-old who should have grown up with dance recitals, school plays, summer camps. To John, still carrying the weight of advocacy 30 years later. To every detective who has kept the file active through administrations, media storms, and dead ends. What if the answer isn't locked in a single DNA hit? What if it's hidden in the overlap of ordinary records, addresses, pay stubs, old photos, phone books that no one fully cross-referenced until now? We don't know yet, but the tools are sharper, the eyes are fresher, and the file is still open. Let's reconstruct the night step by step based on the evidence we know. The Ramseys return from their party around 9 p.m. on Christmas Day. JonBenet falls asleep in the car. John carries her upstairs. Patsy tucks her in. The family claims no disturbances overnight. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy finds the ransom note on the back staircase, 2.5 pages, demanding $118,000. She dials 911, voice shaking. Friends arrive soon after, milling about before police fully secure the scene. John searches the house around 1 p.m., discovers JonBenet in the basement wine cellar. Bound, taped, garroted. Neighbors later reported unfamiliar vehicles in the area that week, odd figures lingering. Phone records show calls to friends right after the note discovery, but no unusual inbound calls that night. Now, layer in what digital reanalysis could add today. Those old cell records, modern tools enhance them, pulling tower logs from archives, mapping pings within a radius of the house. If an unfamiliar phone bounced a signal nearby between midnight and dawn, it flags a lead. Traffic cams from the 90 seconds many were analog, but surviving tapes get digitized now. Run through AI for vehicle recognition, license plates sharpened, makes and models matched to registrations. Boulder PD's December 2025 update, under Chief Stephen Redfern, confirmed new evidence collected, old items retested, several fresh interviews from tips. They didn't specify digital, but Redfern stressed evolving technology, working with federal partners. Imagine querying archived cellular data for anomalies near 15th Street, perhaps tying to contractors who'd been in the home for holiday prep, or pageant contacts digitized from old attendee lists. Neighbors' statements about strange cars cross-checked with retroactive geofencing, pulling DMV records, or even early GPS from rental fleets. It's not sci-fi. It's how they cracked other cold cases, like mapping suspect movements in the Delphi murders through phone data. Key turning points shifted this case from analog guesswork to digital precision. Early on, in the late 90s, digital forensics was nascent. Think floppy disks and basic email traces. The BTK killer in 2005, a deleted file on a church disk led straight to him, proving metadata's power. By the 2010s, AI entered the mix. Algorithms reconstructing timelines from partial data, like in the Golden State Killer hunt, where phone pings and genealogy merged. For Ramsey, these shifts hit home around 2023 to 2024, with the Colorado Cold Case Review Team's recommendations, urging broader tech applications. John Ramsey met Boulder PD in early 2025, pushing for genetic genealogy, but also hinting at wider nets. Recent AI models simulate intruder paths. Input: the broken basement window, unidentified bootprint outside. No forced entry upstairs. Run scenarios. Entry time, movement through the house. Exit route, factoring physical traces like fibers or pollen. Digitized contractor logs. Pageant rosters from 96 events now scanned online, flagging anyone whose path crossed the Ramseys orbit. Intersect that with the unknown male DNA's partial profile, and you build clusters men with access, alibis to verify via old phone bills or business directories. The 2025 update mentioned re-interviews likely cross-checked against digital alibis, like archived emails or travel records. It's fascinating how one floppy from BTK paved the way. Now AI fills voids where witnesses faded. Confirmed facts versus the unknowns keep us grounded. We know 1,996 offered no digital slam dunk, no CCTV capturing an intruder, no smartwatch tracking heart rates. Phone records verified the 911 call, friends' arrivals, but nothing pinpointed an outsider that night. Boulder PD has pursued over 21,000 tips, interviewed more than 1,000 people, per their statements. The 2025 update from Redfern, new physical evidence gathered, lab work at CBI ongoing, tips leading to interviews, collaboration with FBI, outside experts. No closure, but momentum. Unknowns pile up, though. Could AI-enhanced canvas archives, digitized police reports from neighborhood knocks, reveal overlooked vehicles, plates run through modern databases? Might retroactive social network mapping using pre-Facebook-era tools like church directories or business Rolodexes, scanned online, link someone with insider knowledge, that bonus amount in the note, but outsider access? What if contractor phone logs, now digitized, show a call near the home that night? Or if early internet logs from Access Graphics tied to a vendor with a shady history? These aren't wild theories. They're feasible with today's tech. But we don't have public confirmation they're in play. The case file holds boxes of old data bills, logs, statements waiting for that digital lens. Digital tools don't rewrite history, but they fill those frustrating gaps. Balancing privacy against justice in a world where every step leaves a trace. It's so maddening. JonBenet lived in an era without that shield. No alerts pinging if a door creaked open. My heart goes out to her, a little girl who deserved mornings of unwrapping presents, not this endless shadow. To John, still advocating fiercely in 2026, meeting with detectives, believing answers are close. To the Boulder team grinding through data stacks, knowing one ping could change everything. What a nightmare for a family already shattered. We don't know if digital reconstruction will crack it wide open, if it'll map that intruder's path definitively or just narrow the unknowns, but the evolution keeps hope alive. From sparse towers to AI simulations, it's mind-boggling progress. We're not done yet. Post-1996, forensic psychology evolved dramatically. Victim-centered analysis now maps exposure risks systematically, public appearances, social circles, access points where a predator could scout or groom. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children built massive databases, tracking offenders who target visible kids. AI-assisted network mapping cross-references, attendee lists, event photos, even old program credits, against criminal records and behavioral flags. Similar cases show how powerful this can be. In the Idaho student murders, victim profiles helped narrow suspect pools by tracing social overlaps and risk patterns. Here, updated models could revisit the pageant ecosystem. Who had repeated access? Who traveled the same circuits? Who showed up in multiple photos with JonBenet or her family? Known facts stack up clearly. Pageant exposure undeniably increased her visibility. JonBenet competed in multiple pageants in 1996, Little Miss Colorado, America's Royale Miss, National Tiny Miss Beauty. Photographers, makeup artists, costume designers, other families all had access. Certain photographers and vendors entered the home for legitimate work. Boulder PD pursued those leads initially and documented the interviews. The department chased thousands of tips overall. Recent updates from Chief Redfern in 2025 confirm new interviews sparked by fresh tips, part of an ongoing push to re-examine every angle. The unknowns keep us up at night. Did those 2025 re-interviews surface buried connections that got missed the first time? Could modern victimology tie someone from the pageant orbit to unsourced fibers found on the duct tape or garrote? Might environmental microtraces, pollen, soil match a location linked to a competition venue or a vendor's travel route? We don't have public answers yet. The file stays active, but these questions linger. Victimology doesn't exploit trauma. It humanizes it. It reminds us that every public childhood carries unseen shadows, risks that look innocent until they aren't. What a nightmare for a family celebrating the holidays, unaware of how far the spotlight could reach. My heart goes out to JonBenet, a bright little girl who loved the stage and deserved to grow up safe. It's so frustrating. Visibility turned deadly in ways no one saw coming. So where are we now? 30 years of traces from touched DNA to overlooked leads, all converging in ways we couldn't imagine back then. It's maddening. It's so frustrating that a little girl's death still hangs in limbo. But with tech evolving and Boulder PD pushing forward, answers feel closer than ever. Chief Stephen Redfern's December 2025 update was clear. This investigation has been and will continue to be a priority for the Boulder Police Department. We have collected new evidence, retested old evidence, conducted new interviews, and followed up on previously submitted tips. We continue to work with federal partners and outside forensic experts. Techniques and technology constantly evolve. This is especially true with technology related to DNA testing. We will leave no stone unturned. John Ramsey, now in his 80s, met with Boulder PD multiple times in 2025. He brought his own DNA consultant. He pushed for genetic genealogy, for retesting items that were never fully examined. He told reporters, "I believe there's a pretty good chance the killer gets named soon, maybe within months." After 28 years of grief, suspicion, dead ends, and media circuses, he's more hopeful than he's been in decades. John Andrew Ramsey, JonBenet's half-brother, said publicly that dozens of items, some never tested at all, are now at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation lab. Basement trace, unexamined debris from the broken window well, vacuum bags from 1,996, clothing, all potentially feeding into a wider net. The unknown male DNA profile is being retested using next-generation sequencing. Labs like Othram and Parabon Nanolabs specialize in trace forensic work that was impossible in the 90s. Fiber evidence is being reanalyzed using modern spectroscopy techniques that can trace a single thread back to the factory where it was made. Environmental forensics, pollen, soil, microbes, can now map the killer's movements in ways that were science fiction in 1996. Digital reconstruction, AI-powered simulations, archived cell tower data, retroactive geofencing can fill gaps where witnesses faded. Multi-layered genealogy combining DNA with residents' histories, employment records, Social networks can build candidate clusters even when the biological sample is weak. What if that multi-layer genealogy finally narrows it to one name? What if digital reconstruction uncovers a path no one saw? What if fiber analysis links to a specific person, a specific place? What if pollen and soil tell a story of someone who came from outside? We don't know yet, but the tools are sharper, the eyes are fresher, and the file is still open. My heart goes out to JonBenet Forever 6, a little girl who loved sparkly dresses, Christmas lights, singing, and her big brother. To John Ramsey, still fighting for closure, still advocating, still believing answers are close. To Patsy Ramsey, who died in 2006 without answers, without justice. To Burke Ramsey, who grew up under a cloud of suspicion he never deserved. To every detective who has kept the file active through administrations, media storms, and dead ends. To Lou Smith, who resigned in protest because he believed the truth was being ignored. He died in 2010, still convinced an intruder killed JonBenet. To the forensic scientists at Bodhi Technology, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Cellmark, Othram, Parabon, who keep refining the evidence year after year, the truth doesn't disappear, it just waits. And right now, it's closer than it's ever been. If this deep dive got you hooked on the Ramsey case like it does me, hit that like button, share it with your true crime crew. Drop a comment below what's the one piece of evidence you think could crack it wide open. And subscribe for more breakdowns on cold cases that refuse to stay cold. Because we're not done yet. Justice delayed is not justice denied, not while the file is still open.